Live. Everywhere. On netrootsradio.com. David Waldman. Kagro. In the morning. Now, here's David Waldman.
Hey, good morning, everybody. How you doing? It is Wednesday, February 25th, 2026. Got to be careful to get those two numbers not mixed up. And, we've gotten all sorts of discombobulation. We got hit by the discombobulation ray, the discombobulator here, which was, I guess, 2-something hours or nearly 2 hours of craziness last night that I had to, one, skip as I usually do, but in which a significant portion of my universe also skipped. So there's this 2 hours missing from the time-space continuum as far as I can tell. And it screwed everything up. And so I was a little bit late in hitting some of the buttons that you use, although I'm not certain whether it was discernible in live stream land. And you won't be able to tell the difference in podcast land, I'm sure of that. I think I'll blame it on the fact that there was 10,000 feet of Antifa snow that fell on Connecticut and cost us Greg's participation on Monday, and it all spilled over all the way down here to Virginia, where, by the way, our governor gave the response to the State of the Union speech, which I did not watch. And guess what I did with the response? To be fair, because I'm fair and balanced and I do the same thing to both sides, which is not at all true, because I'm a normal person, I don't want to watch either one of those things. I kind of know what they're going to say. And even the response, although I guess I was a little bit interested at one, because it was our governor, and two, because they were apparently going to make some kind of an effort to counter one of the big problems of giving the response to the State of the Union, which is that the State of the Union, for better or for worse, and this one was worse, is given in the majestic hall of the House of Representatives with a big giant flag and all sorts of marble, including colors of marble that even Donald Trump doesn't use in his constructions. And, no matter what you say, there will be half of the room there to jump up and give you thunderous applause. There will be heckling, there will be booing, but usually that doesn't come across very well. In the audio, you don't pick it up. It's not nearly as loud as the applause. Sometimes even the people who don't like you stand and applaud. Sometimes it's ironic. Sometimes it's real. But there's a very definite look and feel to the State of the Union, which cannot be replicated elsewhere. And I think a lot of the failure of the responses in the past has been that they almost immediately cut away from this grand hall filled with, even if it's filled with idiots, clapping seals, whatever it is, they provide the atmosphere that you need. And you cut away to somebody saying, everything that guy said is wrong. Whether you might be right about it or not, but if you're delivering it from a library or something else, or say from, I don't know, maybe from the gym or wherever you may be, it doesn't come across quite as well. Anyway, Abigail Spanberger apparently made an effort to give herself an audience that would applaud for some of it, but it's not the same. The shots aren't the same. I saw little bits and pieces of it. People said it was a very good speech. I'm glad that it was. But, I don't know, countering the State of the Union with another speech, particularly when people are like, thank God that one's over. Oh, another one? Hooray. It's a thankless task. So I won't thank her. How about that? I won't thank her. Yeah. I'm sure you did a good job. Greg Dworkin has dug himself out from underneath all of the snow, and there's really no responding to that. Nature drops 14 inches of snow on you. It's majestic looking. Animals track around in it. Coming to the podcast is just a bit of a letdown after a winter wonderland, but he's here out of a sense of obligation, and because there's so much news. Good morning, Greg. How are you? You sound like you might be in pain.
This is a thankful appearance.
Yes. We're glad about this.
I have to tell you, though, after 4 inches and then getting another 3 this morning, looking out in the back and seeing the deer tracks, one of my neighbors said, oh, I was looking over at your yard. I counted them. There were 12 deer.
And then they fell into the snow and made it out.
Either sleep in the woods behind our house or they, eat our azaleas or whatever, But you saw the tracks, and the first thing you said is, well, that's not a squirrel.
They're underneath.
They're large tracks, so
Yeah, all right.
Hooves. That's what they are. Anyway, I have a video for you. It's about the State of the Union. And as you point out, you don't usually watch these things. In past years,
True, I'm lucky.
I like watching Obama's. I haven't watched any of them really since then because you get all your snippets online.
Yeah.
So I went from not watching for an hour to not watching for 2 hours. It didn't feel all that different. But I have to say, looking at the reactions online, this was just an awful speech. And as a matter of fact, yes. I just want to give you the headline of the Pundit Round of this morning, which is polls say the State of the Union and Trump both suck. And basically,
well,
that's what's going on here. But David Chalian, who is the political director for CNN,
yes,
conservative-leaning, a nice guy.
Okay, if you say so.
And so this isn't, what are we talking about here, Harry Enton? This is,
what did he say?
This is David Chalian, and he's going to look at some Insta polls and talk about them.
Okay, all right. This is the guy with the glasses here. Let's play
the guy with the glasses.
All right.
Which covers a lot of political analysis, by the way.
Oh, this is, I'm going to have to find a way of boosting this audio because it's very valuable. And I hear that it's a little low, and I don't know who, I guess maybe whoever captured the video may have it at a low volume. So let's see. Where do we even start? Hold on a second. I think we did all this prep for show, but what I didn't do is test the levels of how it would go live. So let me boost this thing a little bit. It's probably going to blow out everybody's speakers when I forget that we've done this. But here we go. Let's see if this helps.
This is a poll of speech watchers, right. So it is not a
That's
poll
good.
that is reflective of the population overall. And what we know about people who tune in to State of the Union addresses, they tend to be fans of the president, whichever president is giving the speech. So the polling universe here is about 13 points more Republican than the overall population usually is. So just keep all that in mind as we go to the results of our instant poll. Get this reaction from those that watched the speech tonight. 38% said they had a very positive reaction to the speech, 25% somewhat positive, 36% negative. So roughly 2/3 in the positive territory, 1/3 negative among speech watchers. How does that very positive number stack up against previous addresses? Well, look here. It's about 6 percentage points lower than Donald Trump was at with the very positive score last year. He was at 44% very positive reaction last year. This year, 38%, even though the universe of speech watchers was actually even a bit more Republican than it was last year. And we also took a look at that very positive speech reaction here compared to previous presidents in this midterm year. So in 2026, this year, tonight, 38% very positive reaction. Joe Biden 4 years ago, 41% very positive reaction. That was the year Democrats lost control of the House. You see Trump in 2018 was at 48% very positive when his party lost control of the House in his first term. So you see here, again, Donald Trump is at the bottom of this. I think these polls, even by fans of the president, people who tuned in to watch tonight, and he gets a 2/3 overall positive reaction, I still think you're seeing his overall trouble in the polls these days, which is that he's at a low point, even compared to a year ago when he gave his speech to a joint session.
By the way, well done there, pointing out that, yes, last year was just a speech to a joint session, not a State of the Union address. I love it. Okay. Procedurally important.
Yeah, to a certain extent.
Not really interesting. I didn't think so at all.
It's not the State of the Union and then 3 states of the Union, right?
Right.
So that's what you do.
Yeah, right. All right. So at any rate, but it was interesting that he took a second to point that out. That's helpful. I always like the educational effort.
Good.
Sure.
He definitely
glasses.
is. Republicans generally win, but sometimes Democrats do kind of guy, but that's okay.
All right.
That just makes his analysis more trenchant.
Okay. I mean, I thought it made a lot of sense. It was great that he gives the caveat beforehand. There's 13 points more Republican because that's who tunes in. That was a good.
Yeah, it's
true. A great polling.
Because OnlyFans. This is an OnlyFans kind of speech.
That's my favorite website, except for. Oh, never mind. Anyhow, yeah.
Except for all the others.
Yeah. Right. So I like the internet.
Yeah,
all right.
This is Tom Nichols writing in The Atlantic, President Trump, State of the Union variety show, Were You Not Entertained?
Mm-hmm.
That's the title. President Ronald Reagan, the great communicator, once managed to do the entire State of the Union in 31 minutes. That's because he could say important things efficiently and well. Tonight was not about communication. It was about showmanship. Almost every line was a cue for applause from obedient Republicans. Yes. They even gave Jared Kushner a standing ovation.
Oh,
and every few minutes, Trump told a story and reached out into the audience like the host of The Price is Right, telling people to come on down. He started, of course, with the U.S. men's Olympic hockey team. He couldn't do the women because they refused to come. Yeah. Just basking along with Team USA wasn't enough. Trump soon announced the goalie, Connor Helbick, would receive the Presidential Medal of Freedom. Normally,
come on.
The honor is bestowed for a lifetime of achievement, but this time it was given as if the young athlete had chosen the right door and found a new car. I don't know if you saw it, but somebody did an AI video of Trump dressed up in the U.S. Olympic team hockey gear, getting on the ice, falling on his face, and sliding into the goal face first. It was really, really good.
No, I didn't see that one. I saw the one of him in a suit and tie scoring the winning goal and beating up Canadians.
Yeah, well, that kind of thing. So basically, that's what's going on with the whole State of the Union. It's stupid. Now, just to give you an idea of what the State of the Union really is at this point.
Yeah.
Steve Dennis,
oh, sorry.
Yeah, exactly. Our intrepid congressional.
I was trying to get ready for that, not do it.
Yeah. Says the CBO recently projected that immigration policies of the administration would add $500 billion to deficits over a decade, primarily because there'll be millions of fewer taxpayers. So congratulations, you've had great success.
Is that good?
G. Elliott Morris says in a new poll, 42% of adults say that they would spend a hypothetical $75 billion surplus on reducing housing, health care, and food costs, versus 5% who say they'd spend on immigration enforcement. So his policies are going over well. We have other polling to support the headline I had. This is from February 23rd, a couple of days ago. CNN poll, Latino approval for Trump at 22%. We're now at Bob Dole's support levels among Latino voters.
All right.
But there's still time for Trump to go lower.
American people know it. Yeah.
Right.
Right.
And Larry Sabato from Virginia.
Right.
Says, no need for polling averages today since the big surveys are all showing the same thing. On day 400 at Trump 2.0, Trump is a miserable job approval of 36 to 40%, disapproval at 58 to 62. Trump is way underwater on virtually every top issue.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have that. You also have a couple of other, congressional Republicans in trouble. I don't know if you covered Tony Gonzalez.
I haven't, but we can. Yeah. Let's do it.
Well,
he's gross.
Texas. Tony Gonzalez faces GOP calls to resign over alleged affair. Why it matters. This is from Axios. The backlash from conservative lawmakers could create headaches for Mike Johnson.
That's why
Lauren Boebert on Monday became the first congressional Republican to call on Gonzalez to resign. Brandon Gill of Texas, House Freedom Caucus member, followed suit, posting America deserves better. Apparently, he had an affair with a staffer and then was sending really annoying, send me...
let's have some more of this.
Send me photos, and why don't you? And she killed herself. She self-immolated.
Yeah, like spectacularly.
I mean, it's bad. And so he's in trouble, and that's a one-vote majority, and Mike Johnson doesn't care.
Yeah, he's the one vote. Well, anybody could be the one vote, but he's one of them. And it's interesting. It was Lauren Boebert the first. I had a feeling that maybe Nancy Mace had also done this.
I think she may be on board at this point.
Yeah.
But at that point,
it's funny.
she was the first one.
I think that I do think that Nancy Mace may have been first, but they are just like, she doesn't count. She's just a lunatic. What about a regular one? All right, well Lauren
she wasn't
Boebert,
first.
she's
probably really angry about it and fired 9 staffers.
Now they'll go fight. This is fantastic. All right, that's another vote down.
Anyway, so that's happening. But it's Wednesday. That means Tuesday was yesterday, and there's voting somewhere. So we're going to cover 2 voting things. The special elections that happened yesterday in Maine and Pennsylvania, and then Texas.
All
which
right.
is ongoing till Friday, early vote. And then Tuesday, finally, comes the actual primary results on the Republican side. It's a death match between loser John Cornyn and apparent winner Ken Paxton.
That will be next Tuesday?
Yeah.
Ooh.
This coming Tuesday. And then on the Democratic side, 2 very popular
that will also be Tuesday.
Among Democrats candidates, James Tallarico and Jasmine Crockett. So we'll talk about that. Let's start with Pennsylvania and Maine.
All right.
According to Taniel, who follows this stuff, eye-popping margins in the Pennsylvania special elections. Democrats won HD 42. These are state elections by 63 points. Harris won it by 30. And Democrats won HD 22 by 35 points. Harris won it by 17, so they continue to overperform. Probably underperformed in Maine, but still kept the seat, which that's important. They won by 6% in a district that Harris won by 13. But the point of both of those Maine and Pennsylvania special elections is that you have to prevent the GOP from getting a majority in those houses. And by holding those seats, Democrats did. Really small margins for both of them in both states, so that's important.
All right.
And then there's the big state, Texas.
Yeah.
Huge. So Texas has been voting for a while. We have a week's worth of early vote.
Can't count them.
If you sign up to tell them where you're from, one of the analysts is looking at Harris County around Houston.
Okay. But not everybody
Tarrant County is next to Dallas.
Probably.
And
sounds right.
Travis County is Austin.
Travis and Tarrant. Okay.
Travis and Tarrant, because Travis
Harris
is Tallarico home base and Tarrant is Crockett home base, so that's why they're interesting. They're basically matching each other vote for vote. But in Harris, neutral country in Houston area, so far through day 7, they've had nearly 100,000 votes, 98,062. A projected final of 221,000 votes in a big state with millions of people, but compared to 2024 primary, this is 152% improvement. And so that's good.
Yeah.
And this is outrunning 2020, which was a presidential year. Not the presidential election, but the primary that year.
Okay.
So Harris County is interesting, and here's what's interesting. Okay, if you take the voters who have voted so far in Harris County, 50% of them, 49.2 if you want to be precise.
All right.
50% of the voters either have never voted in a Democratic primary. That's 29% of them.
Okay.
Or they've only voted one out of the last 3.
All right.
And that's 20% of them.
So they're either inconsistent Democratic voters, new Democratic voters, or I guess Republicans who decided to vote Democrat.
So the analysts call them surge voters because these are not normal voters. The normal voters are turning out. Okay. Yes. And who are the surge voters?
Who are they?
They're 5% less black than the overall electorate, Democratic primary electorate.
5% less black. Okay.
But 6% more Hispanic.
Aha.
5% less white.
Small percentages. All right.
Even on Asians, even on others. And if you look at by age, okay, the over 65s are down 16% in the surge voting category compared to regulars.
Okay.
That's not surprising.
They've been around longer.
34-year-olds are up 10%, 35 to 49 are up 6%, and between them, 25% of the surge voters are under 34, and 28% are under 49. So the people who are turning out who don't normally vote are young.
All right.
And Hispanic.
They are young and Hispanic. And no one can tell them they're wrong. It's a primary.
So, who are they voting for? Nobody knows. We don't know who's voting for who. But these are the people that the Democrats are managing to turn out who don't normally turn out. And that's a good thing.
Yeah. All right.
Half of the people voting in your primary are generally the people you're trying to reach and don't normally show up. You're succeeding in doing whatever messaging you're trying to do.
Yes, unless, it could be negative success, of course, coming from Donald Trump being so terrible, but you'd still have to get people to come out.
If your message, look, what was the headline of my pundit round?
I don't know. You said
Donald
it.
Trump sucks. Okay, so
right.
That's your messaging.
I was pretending not to know, so you would say it again.
It's helped by the fact that Donald Trump actually does suck.
Yeah,
but it's working, and these people are turning out.
Benefit of the doubt is it's true. Benefit of the bargain here, and they can't prosecute you they can't go after you for libel. He does suck.
Yeah, exactly right.
It's true.
So,
all right, it's an absolute defense.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
What are we talking about here? We're talking about numbers. We're talking about people who come out to vote. So I think all of that is important.
All right. I think so. That's great news, and it's early. Well, I guess it's not that early anymore. I guess in a week you run out of time. And sometimes, do they cut off the early voting for a few days before? Okay, so this Friday.
Yeah, Friday's the last day.
All right. Warning to those of you in Texas.
The actual election.
If you're in Texas and you haven't been able to make up your mind, but you were determined to vote early, few days left this week. Before we go off the air for the week, you should have registered your vote.
Well, so what percentage of the voters in Texas show up early and what percentage show up on Election Day?
Well,
roughly 50-50 maybe, but nobody knows this year because of the surge voting, so who knows?
Yeah, we don't know what the universe of voters is going to be.
Right.
So
and who do they vote for? We don't know. So all of this is
really,
like
we don't know
Tuesday.
A lot about any of this at all.
Well, a week from now on Wednesday, I'll say, you know what? It's Wednesday. There was an election yesterday, so let's talk about it. So we will.
Oh, good. Yeah, all right. Good practice. All right, well, we're looking forward to that.
State of the Union here in the few minutes we have before the first break. This is G. Elliott Morris, Strength in Numbers poll. According to NBC News,
I'll believe it.
Trump spent just 2 minutes of his speech talking about affordability. 2 minutes.
Yeah, he doesn't believe in it.
And what did he do during those 2 minutes? Mocked the word. The single most important issue in the November elections is affordability.
Well, he doesn't understand. What do you mean can't afford?
Doesn't make any sense. It's a word. They came up with a word. What a stupid word. All of a sudden there's this word.
Like groceries. Yeah, right. The guy doesn't know anything about words. But okay.
What else did he spend 2 minutes on in his 2-hour speech? U.S. Olympic hockey team.
Okay. Well, that's
as much time on affordability as he did on Olympic hockey.
Yes,
is my point here.
Okay.
Nothing. In a 2-hour speech, that's nothing.
And nothing on child care.
So if Republicans think that this helped them, I really hope they do, because, they're stupid.
Yeah, well,
analysts said that this is a reboot, so Republican, no. No. The polls say he sucks. He gave a sucky speech where he talked about how his policies suck. And guess what? It's not really, motivating
doesn't seem to do anything for anybody.
As you point out, it's negative, push, and he's getting Democrats to turn out. So great.
Good, fine. Yeah, I mean, we can't stop him from speaking at this point, so it might as well be a negative impression that he makes on people. And he did.
Right.
Okay.
So Trump, J. Elliott Morris goes on to say, Trump built his 2024 campaign for president on a promise to lower the cost of living for the average American on day one.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Not working.
Kamala, high prices.
Right.
Trump,
by the way,
low prices.
Several recent studies have found Trump's mass deportations could cost the U.S. hundreds of billions of dollars. Did I mention that? I think I mentioned that. In lost productivity and labor, lower spending, and lower U.S. tax revenues, which harms government investment. In other words, you pay more taxes because Trump made it so that these other folks, hardworking and therefore contribute money to the tax system, are here. And so you've got to make up that cost out of your pocket. So good luck.
Well, he could fine them for being late in filing while they're in detention.
Right.
That could make up the
latest survey also reveals voters are concerned that deportations could lead to higher prices of goods produced in industries with higher shares of immigrant employees, like food.
What's that?
Americans also disapprove of the government denying unauthorized immigrants a hearing with a judge before being deported.
Yes.
And it reminds me of an old Tom Lehrer song, which I should have queued up for you.
Yeah.
It's about Senator George Murphy from California. This was back in the 60s, like 62, 63, something like that. And the line from the song goes, should Americans pick crops? George says no, because no one but a Mexican would stoop so low.
I think we've talked about that one before.
We've talked about that one. And the point is that, even in Egypt, the pharaohs had to import Hebrew braceros. The whole idea here is that immigrants picking crops in places like California so that they put the food on your table, Cesar Chavez and the Great Boycott, all that stuff is history. And, the aggressive, obnoxious approach to immigrants basically is what Pete Wilson accomplished as a Republican governor pushing these policies turning California blue.
True.
And so what happened in California should happen to the rest of the country. I'm just saying.
All right. Well, yeah, every day there's a new article. I mean, I'm getting a little tired of it, but it's nice to see at least when can we say people have woken up to this?
We'll be tired of it until November
being,
2028.
Yeah.
That's just how it works.
I guess so. Well, when people have woken up to the reality of, every day is another opportunity for some paper to publish a quote from someone who has voted for Trump 3 times saying, I didn't vote for this.
Yeah.
And everybody says, yeah, you did. And no, but they take us to the zoo every day and say, look at these people
I'm
who
waiting
don't
for
know.
the one that says, I didn't vote for this and I'm from West Virginia. When I get that one, then I think we will hit the singularity,
Well, right. I don't know where that diner is.
Be sucked into the black hole.
We got to open that diner. The I didn't actually vote for him diner.
Yeah.
That might be something.
No, it's I voted for him, but not for this diner. That's what
yeah, right. I wanted a different kind of racism. Oh, well, I've seen him to have left I left the sound up on the alarms. So, all right, we got 30 seconds before I play the music, which gives us 30 seconds to get out of here, which means we got a minute to get out of here.
Well, I'll just remind people I did this
45
online.
seconds.
And sorry to your fans, but I used to play Yoko Ono in college to get myself up for class because you had to get out of bed to get up and turn it off.
Okay, you're one of those people that had the alarm clock across the room, maybe, or just it was just so bad that even
the alarm clock was tied to the stereo.
Okay.
To the
all right.
It
was like a Rube Goldberg machine to get you out of bed. Could have rigged something up.
School.
Okay, that's true. All right, we'll be back in 2 minutes, and let's see. I have to then go into the sound setup. I promised that when we press the next button, things would be off a little bit. I think this is a little bit loud.
Promises.
All right, we'll be right back after these messages, which are probably actually messages from me. Awesome.
Hi everybody, this is Scott Anderson, your summary guy. Were you looking forward to an egalitarian democracy free of bigotry, misogyny, racism, and greed, where people of different appearances, belief, and heritage had a right to live without fear, and everyone could expect a basic level of health, stability, and safety throughout their life? Well, too bad. The plain fact is that we're heading in the wrong direction. And where we once had a voice in such things, increasingly we don't. Not exactly the kind of news I wanted to share, but there it is. However, if you're looking to join people who understand today's issues and can intelligently address the reality of today from your point of view, you can join us at Kagro in the morning. As you know, there aren't many of us out there, at least compared to them. We need to stick together, and by that I mean send us money. That is contributions to patreon.com, secure, reoccurring contributions. Those contributions keep this show on the air and us together. We've been through a lot together. The temporary loss of the presidency, we hope. The temporary loss of the House, the Senate, the Supreme Court, we hope. Face it, we are pretty much all that we have left. Remember, we couldn't do it without you, and you shouldn't do it without us. We're in this together, so thanks.
All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. Greg Dworkin is still with us. We're rounding things up. I think the consensus on the State of the Union address, that sucked. It was very long, not as long as they said it was going to be. Lots of speculation yesterday that the White House was promoting the possibility of a 2-hour plus address, and then lots of speculation ahead of time that they were saying that so that people could go to Kalshi and the betting markets and bet on the over-under and secretly bet on the under and know that Trump was going to cut off at about 1 hour and 47 minutes and they would all be able to cash in. I don't know when that happened.
But technically 1 hour 47. It was a 2-hour speech. It was boring. There were two things he did throughout the speech that people have pointed out.
Oh.
Both turned out to be pretty lame. I read the Tom Nichols thing about the Price is Right. He would turn to people in the audience and say, so-and-so is here, and stand up. And at one point he asked a little girl to stand up, and she couldn't stand, and it was like really cringy.
Oh, no.
And then the other thing that he did is that he had written into the speech, and this was Stephen Miller, Stephen Miller written all over it, would point to the Democrats who refused to applaud the entire speech.
Right.
Which is unusual.
No.
And would say, and these people really hate America. Stand up if you love America. that kind of thing,
Mm-hmm.
multiple times, and Democrats refused to stand, and then Stephen Miller would rant on social media, look at these, we pleaded with them to stand up for America, and they wouldn't, and, as if that works.
Mm-hmm.
First of all,
I was wondering what
watching the
prompted
speech.
that.
Secondly, that doesn't mean anything. And thirdly, this is a speech that an hour later nobody's talking about. So,
By the way, if
just
you're
cringe stuff.
If you're a Democratic social media person, the answer you need is to say he did not say Simon says. That is the reason I did not stand. And everybody knows how that game works, and except for the old man who's crazy. I was wondering what prompted that. I did see the clip that was just basically clipped from him saying, look, and they don't stand. These people are crazy. I'm telling you, Democrats are crazy. He just actually
said it up so I could say that, so I could win, and everybody will applaud me for being so clever, and it didn't work.
I can't believe he said, stand for no reason, except I'll just say it's for America, and you didn't listen to me. Well, that is rather childish.
I just thought I'd point out. Yeah, very childish.
Yeah.
Now, let's talk about something that actually turns out to be important.
Oh, boy. All right. Do I have to know anything about it?
That's Epstein.
Oh, okay. I am ready for this. Well, clicking buttons while you say things about it. Okay. It's about Epstein. That's right. All right. Yeah, I'm ready.
This is MS Now. It used to be MSNBC. It's the Anna Cabrera show. And Lisa Rubin, the lawyer, is talking about how come the Department of Justice can't find those files on the underage woman
girl, obviously,
then woman now, who
they grew up,
who says that Trump did things that were not appropriate.
Well, they all say that. Which one do you mean? We'll find out. Okay,
well, let's hear the video.
I think we know. When the video will reveal it all.
I want to say something about how we know the pages are missing and who might have seen them, because
come on, give me the sound back. I'm sorry. I tried turning up the sound, and that didn't like it.
Now, many of these documents, and I think some of our viewers are familiar with this, they have a number at the very bottom that starts with EFTA for Epstein Files Transparency Act, and then has a number. That number has a meaning. It's basically a consecutive numbering of pages of a production, so that each page has its own unique identifier.
Bates number.
NPR basically looked then at the index, compared it to what was produced for this particular witness and her statements, and has, by comparing those page numbers, has counted 50-plus pages that they believe are missing that correspond to these 3 interview memoranda. We have not independently done that ourselves, but I trust that if we were to go through that exercise, they're probably not far off the mark, that there are 50 pages that you would expect to be produced in consecutive order that are missing from this. We can tell you that this particular victim witness had 15 documents that are supposedly reflective of her statements. We, as well as NPR...
For a moment.
Yeah.
These withheld documents contain accusations of sexual assault on an underage girl.
Yes.
That is as Joe Biden would say, a big fucking deal.
Yeah. Right. Well, that's true. Well, it certainly would be that kind of deal.
Yes, but it's just hearsay. No, it's not hearsay. The FBI was interviewing this witness who became reluctant because she was afraid of retaliation. That's what this is about. And so Lisa Rubin's explaining how we know that they're missing.
Yeah.
And now that the news media knows it's there and knows that it's missing, guess what? More Jeffrey Epstein story that's not going away.
Yeah, they can't seem to figure out that this sort of suppression of the documents actually lengthens the story.
But this particular one was a bombshell.
Yeah.
And this one alone.
We had to have known this was coming.
Would easily explain why Trump has been acting the way he has and the DOJ has been acting the way they are about these files.
This is the pages and the actions about the pages are all the things that you knew ahead of time were actually going to happen. Everybody
said it was in there. Here
and
it
everybody
is,
knew what they would do with it.
We haven't seen it because now Ro Khanna and Thomas Massie are saying, hey, now that we know that you withheld these documents, that's illegal and criminal. We passed a law so that you wouldn't do that.
Yes.
Now we,
couldn't,
as our right, as Congress people, are demanding to see those unredacted files.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'll talk about whether or not they should be released.
Yeah, that's true. But they should be able to demand their production. And yeah, I mean, like I said, this was a setup from the beginning.
Names? I mean, there's other things in there that that fit with the law, so they have to see them first. But that's where this is going. It's not going away.
And when I say that it was a setup from the beginning, I mean everybody knew that these things had happened and that Donald Trump would do anything to cover up the fact that they had collected this information. And so they said, all right, you're forced to release it. If you can explain it, but you have to release it. Now, I know you won't release it. Then we'll be able to point to that and say, what are you hiding and why? And he went ahead and did it. So now I guess we're now in the what are you hiding and why phase, except we actually know what it was.
Yeah. So sometimes the crime is as bad as the cover-up, and sometimes the cover-up is as bad as the crime. This is one of these.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to tell. It's very little that's worse than the crime. The usual adage being that the cover-up is worse. Axios would say it's worse because they would say, well, why does any of this matter? It matters because there's a very thin, very narrow margin in Congress, and he may lose control. No, it matters because you're not supposed to, rape kids. That's why it matters. And yet it's alleged that he did, in fact, do that, and that would make him unfit to be president. But somehow that never makes it into the why it matters section. You got to read that elsewhere.
Right.
Okay. Go Axios. All right. Well, does that suffice for the Lisa Rubin appearance, or does it get worse?
Yeah, no, I think that basically tells what's going on. Again, people need to internalize this. There is an underage, at the time, girl who accused Donald Trump in a credible fashion of sexually assaulting her. And we know it's credible because the FBI interviewed her on multiple occasions and ultimately decided not to press charges because the girl was afraid of retaliation. That's the story. With documenting backup.
And you can and should believe that because, quite honestly, right now, if they revealed her name, she would immediately, in fact, face retaliation.
Absolutely.
So, come on. You don't even have to think about that.
What's in there, without, redact her name, but tell us the rest of what's in there.
I guess, or tell somebody who can say, all right, well, on your behalf, the United States Congress has found out and we're going to do something about it. That's tough to sell to this Congress. But, since they won't do anything, you'll probably have to say, well, here's the information, public. What do you make of it? We'll see how far it goes. All right. And, wow. So Trump had nothing to do but try to deflect from all of that with his sort of his 2-hour thing and the weird moments and calling people out.
He spent 2 minutes on the hockey team and 2 minutes on affordability. And how many times did he say Epstein? Well, if your drinking game was I take a drink every time he says Epstein, you will be stone cold sober.
That's right. Undehydrated as well.
Yeah.
So regardless, I knew he wasn't going to be saying much about that. Also, I guess in terms of antics around the speech, Al Green was thrown out of the hall again. This time before the speech even began. And really, as it turns out, he had the moment of the night. He got more headlines over the course of the night. He got them all, of course, as the speech was just getting started. Every news site had that he had been thrown out of the hall for showing up with a sign. What was it that it said? It was black.
It said black people are not apes.
Yeah, right. So a reaction to the crazy video that he circulated on Truth Social. We all know about it, and Al Green had something to say about it, and they didn't want him to say it there. And I imagine that they said, well, bringing signs is against the rules, and it probably is. Unless, of course, the signs say mass deportation now, in which case it's fine. So they threw him out, and he got written up everywhere. It was all over the news. So a very successful stunt for him, and sometimes they actually work. A lot of people boycotted attending. I stole my idea and decided to have did counter programming outside of the Capitol. And a few people left in the course of the speech, which I think also was a good suggestion. They should have had it happening throughout the speech. People not to necessarily. You don't even have to make any statement of protest. Just yawn and leave and be like, this has gone on for too long, and it's just dumb. I'm out of here. As opposed to, sticking around to say, well, he didn't say anything about affordability. We'll get that news We don't need you to waste your day with it. It's funnier if you just yawn and walk out and say, honestly, that would be a hilarious statement. Catch a member of Congress. Sir, why are you leaving? It's 2 hours. I had to go to the bathroom. This sucks. I'm not going back. Oh, wow. That was really good. Actually, that's very humanizing. Excellent. Right. You don't have to give me a speech about affordability. You just said, it's like a movie. How long can it go on? I'm leaving. Right. This is the worst.
So there's a lot of polling going on because State of the Union, and around the State of the Union, people just want to know, well, what is the State of the Union? So I want to give you 2 generic ballot polls that are out. One is the G. Elliott Morris Verisites Strength in Numbers poll. Generic ballot, Democrats at 52, that's up 2 points, and Republicans at 42. That's the D+10 biggest lead of the cycle for that particular poll. And then there's another national poll by YouGov via Bowling Green University.
Sure. They had that massacre, as I recall.
Generic ballot, Democrats 49, Republicans 41, so that's an 8-point lead. More motivated to vote, Democrats 62, Republicans 44. Net favorables, Obama +6, Vance -18, Trump -19. You know, he's just in trouble in the polls, and that's how come I wrote the headline that I wrote. I'm just saying.
Then it makes sense.
Yeah.
Good.
Now, one last issue I want to give you before I go. Do you remember the excellent movie War Games?
Oh, yes.
With Matthew Broderick?
I don't know if we have any sound from that movie on the soundboard, and we really should. They're so applicable. Yes, of course, absolutely. Every line, more or less.
Well, it turns out that a recent study showed that if you ask AI to participate in war games,
yes,
95% of the time they want to use nuclear missiles.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. I don't know how intelligent they are. Yes,
but that's background.
Yeah, okay.
It's true, it's a fact, but it's background.
All right.
Okay, so right now there's a company, it's not just OpenAI, there's a company called Anthropic.
Yes.
Anthropic produces
Claude, I think, is one of their products.
Yeah. They work with the Pentagon. They already have a contract.
Great.
And their product is better suited for the Pentagon than anybody else's product, which is why they're there.
I see.
So Sam Stein is trying to summarize what's going on here, just so I understand this. Anthropic's leadership is saying, hey, we have this amazing product we're comfortable with you, the Pentagon, using, provided you don't use it for mass surveillance of Americans or to have weapons fire without humans involved. And Pete Hegseth is saying, no, that's no good. And if you don't let us do those things, we're going to rip up the contract. And Sam Stein said, so I'm still trying to wrap my head around this. I'm trying to get an understanding of how the government's position is AI should be used to mass surveil Americans and also fire weapons without any human involvement. See War Games.
Yeah.
And it's the bottom line minded private sector that's saying no, not the government.
Interesting. And I'm not even sure what ripping up the contract means. I just want you to know that, because
that's also a BFD.
Yes. There's a couple movies about how that's the end of humanity. So, and it's not just War Games.
Yeah.
All right.
We want the Matrix, says the Pentagon. And
the Terminators. Skynet should have universal surveillance plus the option of using the weapons without actually asking any humans about it. It's an interesting position for the Pentagon to take. And ripping up the contract, I don't know.
I mean, they could give it to Palantir, who's trying to do the same thing, but it turns out that the Anthropic's, particular product just fits the Pentagon to a T. It would cost billions of dollars, wouldn't work as well. And Hegseth wants to throw that out because he can't surveil the American population. So,
or is have robots kill them. Yeah.
Did Stephen Miller write his speech last night? Probably. Did it work? No.
Right. Should you kill your Roomba before it kills you?
Yes. I mean, but all of this is going on. All of it can be true at the same time.
Okay. Yes. Well, lots of things that aren't true are going on in the Pentagon, and Pete Hegseth is involved in most of them. I understand there's a video circulating him in which he's, I don't know what this is. People are debating whether or not he's in fact, as the video claims, bench pressing 315 pounds. This is what we're reduced to. How much do you bench? And is he lying?
Hey, do you really lift? Come on.
Yeah, right. Do you even lift, bro? But all the people who do lift, I guess, are saying, I know what it looks like when a person of that size attempts to move 315, and it doesn't look like that. So now, like, do they really use fake weights and then force, like, they made troops surround him and clap for him? Please clap. I don't know. I got no answer for you on that. I don't believe I've ever moved 315 pounds off of a bench press. So, no, I couldn't tell you anything about it. But people who do say, yeah, no bend in the bar, nothing, no tension in his lower body trying to lift this thing. I don't know. Seems odd. We don't really want to be in that position. But I guess if you're going to fake that, you might as well fake running the Pentagon and let AI do it. So maybe that's why he needs to do it. If you have to have human involvement in firing the weapons, that means I have to come to work and not be drunk. And I'm not doing that.
I got a famous video for you. I love to send you right here.
Yes.
And I can't tell you anything about the sound level.
Oh, boy.
But it's famous.
Yeah, all right. It's down at the bottom, YouTube. I'm just going to press the buttons. I don't know anything about it. I'm not even going to open my eyes. Oh, how am I going to find the buttons? Now, I can't surprise myself. I've ruled that out. This is famous. Oh, okay. This is the Do You Even Lift? Is this the origin?
This is Bro Science, number 38. The
wow.
original.
Okay. Let's see. Wow. Okay. It's a loud one. Where can I adjust the volume there? There's a gunshot to start with things. Lots of gunshots. That's how.
Just because you actually lift weights or think you might be in shape,
is this Harry
doesn't
Enton?
mean you're going to get any credit for lifting. I've created a flow chart to answer the age-old question.
Look at this thing.
Do you even lift? Do you go to the gym? Yes, you do. What do you do at the gym? You do classes. What are you, a child? You don't lift. You do cardio? You don't lift. You do weight training. Too bad you do machines. They're the ones lifting, you're not. Here we have TRX with a question mark. That leads nowhere. That's pretty much self-explanatory.
I don't even know what that is. Well, this thing is
but just
huge.
to give you an idea, do you even lift? Come on, let me just explain it to you.
Right. Yeah,
so,
I get.
So
mostly
it's my job to tell you kids, the youth who are listening to the show, about people like Leroy Jenkins and what that means. And Bro Science,
this is 12 years
old.
This
is the kind of thing that I offer you. I don't know anything about modern culture, but let me tell you about this.
This guy is, by the way, in assisted living care right now. This is 12 years old, so he's now 85. Now, is he serious or is he doing a bit?
No, he's doing a bit.
I can't tell.
But it's fantastic.
Okay.
It's Bro Science, man.
Yeah. All right. Well, it makes some sense.
Anyway, that's my contribution for today.
Excellent.
Little Tom Lear, a little Bro Science, and, we'll see you tomorrow.
Sure. All right.
Come back tomorrow. Go ahead.
Right. Yeah, well, all right. I got to get out of Bro Science first. There we are.
Go away and come back tomorrow.
And there when you do, bring your weights when you do.
Bring your weights.
All of them. Carry, because you can. All right. Very good. We'll survive until tomorrow. I think any more snow on the way? I hear people are getting more.
There's always snow on the way.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
We're getting snow till July. It's going to be one of those years.
Yeah. I guess we're due for a Republican speech about, I thought there was global warming.
Yeah, something like that.
Great. Terrific.
Right. Anyway, take care, and we'll see you tomorrow, folks.
All right. Thank you. Do now come back tomorrow. I was going to say, well, do now go away and come back tomorrow. All right. We got it from here. I will say, let's say, there's some other discussion about some of the Trump content from last night and mannerisms. I did notice at the conclusion of his speech, his usual thing when the cameras are on him, as they would be in C-SPAN, and not on the audience. And even if it was on the audience, it's such a jumble, you can't tell. Trump loves to use that opportunity post-speech when the applause is going on to, I'm going to enclose this in scare quotes, point at people, quote unquote, point at people in the audience, and then usually mouth the words like, thank you, or something like that. He just has this very exaggerated, him and exaggerated lip movements. Thank you. And it makes it look like he's making a personal connection with people in the audience. But I just want to go on the record probably one more time as saying he can't see 5 feet in front of his face. How many videos have we seen of him at the table in the cabinet room saying, and we have our terrific secretary of, whatever it is, and pick any of them. The cabinet is not a large group of people. Our wonderful secretary, where is our secretary? And the video is always like, he's right in front of you. He's like about 5 feet in front of you. And, I didn't realize, I didn't know. I thought you must have moved or something. Anyway, he can't see. He can't read off the teleprompter. He can't see at a distance. He can't see close up. He's very Mr. Magoo-ish about this. And anyway, the pointing, I think, is a trick he picked up long ago, even before he really couldn't see. But it's meant to make it look like you have personal acquaintances in the audience, and they're loyal to you. They've come to see you. The super fans all think, he's pointing at me, or maybe not at me. That time was definitely at me. And he's saying thank you. That must be for the loyal support I've given him. Anyway, he does do this all the time. And I just wanted to point out that almost always he doesn't have any idea who he's pointing to or whether, in fact, there are people there. I said so on Blue Sky this morning, and other people pointing out other examples that they've seen that, let's see, there's someone who says, I think there is actually B-roll, and somebody put together a mashup, a super edit, as they say, a B-roll super edit of Trump exiting a building and pausing to wave to a non-existent crowd, right? So this is just, this is how manipulative he is that he just has these moves that he knows they're not going to run the B-roll in the news that night. They're going to just show him waving, and people will assume that means there's a crowd there, or that pointing at people and saying thank you. I think that's largely true. I think there's a couple of other people who had some similar comments saying he does the same thing when he exits the planes. So, thank you for all your comments there. I think you've seen the same thing that I have, which, what did we say about that? Confirming my priors. I appreciate it. Okay, so let's see. I think we can be more or less done with the State of the Union part of the discussion. There wasn't much there to discuss except how poorly it was received and how the audiences were lower than usual. I assume that it'll get under his skin if you say, oh my gosh, low ratings. Maybe not. But all right. I guess the other thing of interest about the State of the Union in the minute or two we have left here before we take our top of the hour break is that people are pointing out a lot of sane washing going on, even though this was perhaps one of the most insane State of the Union addresses or addresses to joint sessions of Congress, what have you, that he's given. But the papers are still kind of stuck with the idea that they need to regularize, normalize, sane wash this thing. So lots of instances of people saying, well, it was a tough talking and pugnacious Trump who was out for confrontation, but he controlled the room and he did this. Or there were even a couple of previews of the speech saying, well, this is he's going to have the opportunity to establish that he's firmly in control of the party, and that or maybe he'll take the opportunity to pivot to one or another of the important economic issues or something like that. I believe also, I think Justin Wolfers pointing out that in a single sentence at one point in addressing housing costs, and I guess, making reference to affordability, that Trump said he was going to try and make housing prices more affordable. But at the same time, and he did this the other day too, he's also said, well, I don't want to make housing prices go down. I think just as an old real estate guy, he realizes, he and a lot of his rich friends, a lot of their money is in the equity of, well, his rich friends, their money is, in the equity of God only knows what. But well-to-do people who might say be able, if they live in Palm Beach, Florida, to pay the initiation fee at the Pervalago Club or something like that. Not necessarily the wealthiest of the wealthy, but enough to pay me $200,000 and hang out with me and pretend they're rich and glitzy. That most of their wealth is tied up in rising property values. So their primary home, their vacation homes, maybe some investment properties or whatever. And so he knows that they want to hear the opposite of bringing down housing prices. So how do you thread that needle? If you're Trump, you just get two needles, basically, and say, they're both the same needle, and I'm threading them both. So Wolfers points out that he says that he's going to both bring down housing prices and also leave them exactly where they are, or maybe even increase them slightly so that people can recoup their investments. So I don't know how you're supposed to distill what the policy is out of that. But if you're looking to this speech for policy, you're barking up the wrong tree. But that's what the media is going to serve you regardless. Every paper, 5 takeaways from the State of the Union, or things to look for in tonight's State of the Union. And I mean, honestly, the things to look for are, does it happen? Does he, the people behind him on the rostrum, the Speaker of the House and the Vice President, visibly recoil at any point and, cough into their sleeves for extended periods of time, watering in the eyes, what's happening here? Those are the things people really wanted to see. And if there was any reason to tune in, it was to see whether, he blurts out something outrageous or drops dead. I don't know. You never know what you're going to get with this guy. All right. Let's see. We've already covered all of the... Greg got to all of the election stuff. That's, for some reason, still top of the list in my Instapaper. I think I'm going to have to refresh that and grab the few things that I saw flying by in the prelude to today's show. Okay. And we've got plenty of it. We can return to the themes I've compiled for our examination after the break, but it'll bring us around to, I guess, trigger warning, content warning, everyone. We're going to talk about Kash Patel, at least briefly, after the break. He's really, I don't know, I guess his chief spokesperson, whoever that is. I don't think I know them by name, but I probably should get used to it. I'm sure I've seen it before. It really seems to have dug him into a hole with Ken Delanian and Carol Leonig, who, I mean, those are some fairly serious and tenacious reporters in terms of the size of the platform they have and the kind of information they're going to be able to shake loose. And they were easily, not so much Leonig, but Delanian, I guess you can probably persuade to go along to get along. No longer. All right, welcome back, everybody, to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. I told you we were going to talk about Kash Patel. Did you run away? Have you left yet? All right, Kash Patel is in trouble, and he's in trouble with a lot of people. And the aim of at least 2 people, it seems to me, Ken Delanian and Carol Leonig, is to get him into even more trouble. But only because they're reporting faithfully and neutrally on information being generated by Senate investigators. And I guess it's all pouring out now. But I think there was a triggering event. And we talked about it yesterday, and that was that Ken Delanian had the audacity to question whether it was really the case that Kash Patel was headed to Milan in the last 2 or 3 days of the Olympiad, the Games of the Winter Olympiad, in order to oversee security for the event. By the way, Milan is in Italy. And Italy is outside the jurisdiction, generally speaking, of the FBI. But yeah, we have field offices there because people commit crimes that affect the United States and national security everywhere. That is all true. The Olympics are an international event. There's a large American presence there. It certainly would make for a spectacular event if someone were to try to make a political statement with a terrorist type attack on the Olympics in general or on the American team there, or if they said, fantastic, you've delivered us the director of the FBI, what a spectacular target that would be. But by going there, he's daring them to do it, but he's definitely going to foil their attempt to do it, or maybe no one cares. Anyway, the point is, he was, I think, using the excuse, I think everybody knew, and Ken Delanian probably suspected, Carol Leonig probably suspected, that he was using the idea that he was somehow going to check in on security, and I'm sure he scheduled something for himself I mean, he is pretty shameless, but he probably did say, schedule me a thing where I'll go Yargle Bargle security, and then I'll go to the games. And Delanian had, I think, correctly deduced that he was, in fact, going to go to the gold medal hockey game and ask that question of the spokesperson at FBI. And because it's a Trump person, they flew off the handle and accused him, the two of them, Leonig and Delanian, both of lying about Kash Patel and how dare you, and you're smearing him. And no, this is a legit thing, and how dare you even ask? And so I think Delanian's follow-up was, well, but is he going to the hockey game? I mean, I know you say that he's going to do a bunch of security things, and then he might also, once he's done fixing the security for Italy, go to the hockey game. Not because he's interested so much in the hockey, as he's nearby, and he heard some cheering, and he figured if there's cheering, it's for America. I'll just go in and check out what that is. Whatever. He offers all of this defense, but he goes the extra mile and says, you're liars, you write for a rag of an outfit, and we hate you, and why are you making things up? And then meanwhile, as he's doing that, Kash Patel is tweeting out pictures of himself, selfies in the stands watching the game. And so, they create enemies for themselves among the press, which I guess is part of the point for the way they operate. But that's one thing when it's Trump, and I don't know, super fans are willing to suspend disbelief. I guess Kash Patel still thinks he's got super fans because he's was, and maybe still is, a podcaster. So, I guess we all think we have super fans, but I don't know if there's, I don't think that there's anything I could think of that the general population would think of as a horrific abuse of power or possibly a crime that I would do that fans of the show would say, screw it, I love the crime. Let's have more of it. I'm that much of a fan. I mean, I guess there are certain crimes you could perpetrate that would definitely be federal offenses that would still make people say, actually, I support that, who support the show. But I get the idea generally. Anyway, so his press operation is busy denying this whole thing, and then he's busy contradicting all of that. And then more video, as we discussed, in the locker room, and then questions over who invited who to the locker room. By the way, I think it's funny because the FBI spokesperson later on had to say, all right, he went to the game, but he just happened to walk by or something. No. He was now he's in the locker room. Well, he was invited into the locker room. Really? I thought he was busy inspecting the security or whatever. How did he even know that the invitation was there? So anyway, who invited him? It was, I guess, one of the coaching staff, the head coach. I don't know what's the position you hold if you are running the show for the Olympic team. But apparently, this person is the general manager of the NHL franchise based in Minnesota. This becomes important because the carryover from the State of the Union thing. The men's hockey team, they're invited, they accept, they go. Women's hockey team, different story. Covered it yesterday. They got by far the better end of the bargain. They went to a party. They didn't. I would like to have seen the looks on the faces of some of these hockey players when they were told, yeah, you gotta get yourself all gussied up. And although I guess they went in hockey-ish gear, which is good. They didn't have to be there in suit and tie. But when they told them this could take 2 hours, and you got to be in your seats early because security, and you can't leave right away because security, and you're going to be on the hook for 3+ hours, and the cameras could go to you at any moment. So no picking your nose, no video gaming on your phone, no falling asleep. And they realized very quickly, I think they got the wrong end of that bargain. But anyway, so apparently some members of the men's team declined to take the president up on the ride home on the military aircraft, and then I guess that comes with a package. They won't give you the ride home on the military aircraft if you don't also agree to then go to the White House and then go to the State of the Union and show up for all that. So for Minnesota players, that is to say, players on the U.S. Olympic hockey team who have some connection to Minnesota, they live there. I don't know whether they play for the team there or not, or maybe they are originally from Minnesota and play elsewhere, but they people who had Minnesota connections growing up, whatever, apparently are among these 4 who said, actually, I have, I'm sure they didn't say, screw you, I hate the president, but they probably said, I have other commitments, I just can't go. I got all my teeth punched out, whatever, I need to go to the dentist. One of the guys who did get all his teeth knocked out did go to the thing anyway. Apparently he doesn't care about dental care. Anyway, 4 Minnesotans decided, I guess, you've mistreated my state so badly, go F yourself. I'm certainly not going to sit there for 4 hours listening to the guy who so badly abused my state. On the other hand, there are players on the team who play for the Minnesota franchise at present, and the guy who extended the invitation, I guess the coach, I don't know what position he holds with the Olympic team, is the GM of it's the Minnesota Wild now. They used to be the North Stars, then they moved or something, right? And now they got the Wild. I don't know. I follow no hockey at all. I remember the names of the teams. That's it. Although I will say this, every time they report hockey scores, I'm like, they got a team? What are they doing with a team? And why does, Havana have a hockey team? How do they figure out? All right, whatever it is. But yeah, and then the names of the teams, no following any of that. So sometimes I think, is that a minor league team? No, it's in the NHL. Wow, okay. It's been a while. Anyhow, the GM of the Minnesota Wild is the one who extended this invitation. So there'll be a little bit of tension between the personal politics of the people at the top of the Minnesota franchise and some of the players on the Minnesota franchise who did attend. I don't know whether they grew up in Minnesota or not, but there will be some questions about their dedication to Minnesota, I think, among the ticket holders. Although, again, hockey tends to be a more conservative crowd. But there will definitely be some questions and some protests. Anyway, I thought that was of some interest. And it wasn't even the story I wanted to tell you about Kash Patel, which is this one. After pissing off the reporters and accusing them of lying when they were in fact correct, Senate investigators have been releasing information then dutifully reported or perhaps shared with the MS Now team. Richard Durbin, as a matter of fact, Senator Durbin, as we know as Dick Durbin, was the one releasing some of this information. I don't know whether he was responsible for all of it. Here's the headline over at MS Now, and you'll never guess who the reporters are, Carol Leonig and Ken Delanian. Kash Patel's use of jet, remember he flew over in the corporate jet, one of a few that the FBI keep us on hand, but Kash Patel's use of this jet, not only was it an insult and a waste of taxpayer money, as he used to accuse Christopher Wray of doing, but it also delayed the FBI team's mass shooting response in one instance, according to a whistleblower report to Dick Durbin. Durbin says the FBI's director's misplaced priorities led to the delayed response to the Brown University shooting in December. And that was very interesting, and it caught a lot of attention. And then it turns out, actually, there's more instances where FBI response to major crimes that they should have had instantaneous response to were delayed because the jets that they were ordinarily able to use to move the specialized teams from, say, Washington, D.C. to wherever they were needed couldn't get there in time or couldn't get there quickly enough because the jets were gone because Kash Patel was on them chugging beers with the hockey players or taking his girlfriend to UFC fights or whatever. And it's a recurring story. This story says that agents with the FBI's elite evidence response team were delayed in reaching the scene of a mass shooting at Brown University in December because there was no FBI plane available to take them to Rhode Island, according to 3 sources and a whistleblower's account newly provided to Congress. I've seen there's some programming on TV that's popular in the household. That is to say, not with me, but with others, in which I am seeing FBI personnel frequently flying all over the place in what really looks like kind of a cushy corporate jet. And I wonder, is that really available to these guys? Well, it's available to some guys. In real life, it turns out they really do have that. I don't know whether they're all so cushy I'm sure Kash Patel's plane is cushy, but that's kind of the way private jets are outfitted. And, of course, you're going to want them to be able to do work on the way to and from, so it pays to have that, and they got to get to some remote locations, and they got to go fast, and they got to get there right away, and time is of the essence. It actually makes sense, but not the way they're doing it. FBI Director Kash Patel was in South Florida at the time of the Brown shooting, of course, with one of the FBI's 2 available jets, and had given an order to hold the other one for another team that would not normally respond to the Brown University scene, according to the whistleblower and the sources. The evidence response team instead had to drive through the night amid a snowstorm to reach the university in Providence, Rhode Island. Thankfully, they weren't driving through this snowstorm, the record-breaking snow that Providence got just the other day, but another snowstorm. And then they had to drive all night in order to get there by 9 in the morning the next day, according to this whistleblower's account. Dick Durbin, the ranking Democrat on the Senate Judiciary Committee, obtained the whistleblower's account in a letter sent Tuesday to the Government Accountability Office and the Justice Department's Inspector General. Durbin accused Patel of harming the FBI's critical investigations due to his misuse of FBI resources and aircraft and his inexperience. And you might wonder, for instance, I think I saw a pretty good political cartoon circulating the other day, in case you were wondering why they haven't found Savannah Guthrie's mother. It may have something to do with, well, rather than work, we're chugging beers in the locker room and pretending we're on the hockey team. Okay, sure. Well, anyway, the director's misplaced priorities and poor management of the FBI's resources, including its aircraft, also harmed the FBI's ability to respond to the shooting at Brown University on December 13th, 2025. Durbin wrote, Patel had been flown in one of the FBI's 2 jets to South Florida. What's going on in South Florida, by the way, at any given time? Pervalago, for one thing. That was all on December 13th, the day of the shooting, and he didn't fly back until the afternoon of December 14th, which, by the way, also cancel your vacation. There's been a major shooting. The FBI needs to work. Oh, but not me, right? Anyway, this all according to sources who spoke to MS Now confidentially in order to speak candidly and avoid potential retribution. Why did they speak to MS Now? They knew, I guess someone told them they might have a receptive audience in Carol Leonig and Ken Delanian. Now, according to the account, Patel ordered that the hostage rescue team be put on standby after learning of the shooting, which froze the use of the second plane by any other FBI team. The FBI officials were confused by his order, as numerous SWAT team agents in the nearest local field offices, in this case Boston and New York, would ordinarily be called upon to provide immediate support rather than the Quantico, Virginia-based hostage rescue team. Well, also, as it turns out, there were no hostages. But there you go. FBI spokesman, maybe this is the answer, Ben Williamson. And they're calling him out because now they're mad with Williamson. And I think it was Ben Williamson who they fought with over Patel's trip to the Olympics as well. So clearly they're going to have him out there by name. He disputed the whistleblower's account, saying that evidence response agents in the FBI's Boston field office were on the scene roughly 2 hours after the shooter opened fire at roughly 4 o'clock in the afternoon. This was not immediately a case with federal nexus, Williamson added. No, you don't think so? Explaining that the FBI did not initially take the lead in the case. It was a state-led homicide investigation. FBI was in an assisting role until later, when they weren't, and then they were in no role because no one was getting there. He added that the director's jet travel to Florida didn't harm the mission because sending a plane to Rhode Island wasn't necessary. If the director happens to be out of town, he always offers the plane if needed anyway, and did so here, Williamson said. It wasn't needed. In the December 13th shooting, that was the case where a former Brown graduate student, Claudio Manuel Neves Valente, entered a university classroom building, then killed 2 students, wounding 9 others before fleeing the scene. A Massachusetts Institute of Technology professor and former classmate of Valente's was later shot and killed. After a 5-day manhunt, police found Valente dead from a self-inflicted gunshot wound in a storage unit. The FBI's evidence response teams are known for specialized skills in mapping out a crime scene and collecting forensic evidence. You might see them on TV doing such things. And often used technical gear to help in gathering latent fingerprints and photographic clues. Agents who specialize in evidence collection are based in FBI field offices around the country, but specialists based in the Quantico unit that oversees the evidence review and crime scene reconstruction are some of the most experienced veterans and often deploy in the case of a major crime scene or a mass shooting. An FBI official familiar with Patel's travel said he was using the jet that December weekend to visit his elderly parents. I guess that's supposed to be the excuse. It's a nicer thing to do than going to the UFC fights with your girlfriend, if that's what happened. But he declined to say where the parents lived due to security concerns. Property databases reviewed by MS Now indicate Patel's parents reside in South Florida. So, likely true. According to Durbin and multiple sources who spoke to MS Now, Patel's frequent use of the plane for ostensibly personal travel has left the FBI struggling to deploy for emergency assignments when teams need access to a government plane quickly. Durbin wrote that his letter served as a follow-up to one he sent in May, requesting that the GAO conduct a comprehensive review of the Justice Department's use of government-controlled aircraft by senior executives. Since his confirmation as director of the FBI, Patel has seemingly engaged in what amounts to irresponsible joyriding on DOJ and FBI-operated aircraft at the expense of the American taxpayer and to the detriment of ongoing Bureau operations, the senator wrote. I request that the GAO's ongoing review address the new information outlined below, and that the Department of Justice's Office of Inspector General investigate Patel's misuse or mismanagement of government resources. Durbin took note of Patel's recent trip to Milan on the FBI jet. Oh, did he? I'm glad he noticed that. I've lost my place here, but he took note of the recent trip to Milan, pointing out that the FBI spokesperson, Ben Williamson, how does he get a second call out, claimed that the director did not go to Italy, quote, to hang out at the Olympics on the taxpayer dime. However, Durbin noted by the director's own admission and video accounts on February 22nd, he celebrated with the gold medal winning U.S. men's Olympic hockey team after their victory. The Milan trip occurred on the same weekend that an armed intruder attempted to breach President Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago residence, Durbin noted. While the FBI director is required to fly privately for security reasons, personal leisure activities and travel bucket list should not dictate work travel, nor should it have a material impact on the Bureau's time-sensitive operations and investigations, Durbin wrote. Durbin said a credible source told Senate staffers that during a meeting last year, Patel told FBI field office personnel, quote, if you have golf, hockey, fishing, or hunting and beautiful sights, you're going to see a lot of me. Ah, I see. So, I was just kidding. But in his tour of the field offices, if you happen to have those things going on in your neighborhood, I might visit a little more than usual. The senator added that Patel's frequent and unapologetic use of DOJ or FBI-controlled aircraft for personal travel raises concern about whether he's complying with applicable regulations and reimbursement requirements for non-mission-related travel, and whether the department has sufficient internal controls to track and enforce those obligations. The capacity is there. They're simply not using it, is the answer to that one. Durbin said the whistleblower account makes clear that Patel's travel has materially harmed the mission of the very agency he is sworn to lead, as federal law enforcement is navigating multiple crises, including Americans facing significant danger after a prominent cartel leader was killed in Mexico. The FBI cannot afford to have its resources further stretched by a director who views its staff and aircraft as a means to support his jet-setting lifestyle. Durbin ended by noting that Patel criticized his predecessor's use of the same aircraft for personal travel in a 2023 interview when he stated, quote, Chris Wray doesn't need a government-funded G5 jet to go to vacations. Maybe we ground that plane. $15,000 every time it takes off. End quote. Certainly true. And what can I tell you? I don't know what it's going to take to get him thrown under the bus, but Carol Leonig and Ken Delanian seem determined to figure that out. So, I guess we'll eventually get a catalog of major crimes that made worldwide headlines, where the FBI was delayed in its response because Kash Patel had checked all the planes out and taken them with him to go bowling in Tennessee, or whatever the hell it is he's doing with these things. All right, a few other items that we can add to the roundup. How about this? In yesterday's report from Rosalind McGregor as chief Michigan correspondent, we heard about Jeffrey Epstein's weird relationship with the Interlaken Arts Camp and his unusual, I guess, introduction to the place as a camper, as a kid, a 14-year-old bassoon player, and some, irresponsible, not to speculate, speculation about whether or not that triggered anything in him psychologically, whether it may have been the case that he felt he missed out socially while he was there and was a peer to the other mid-teenage kids who were there, and that he'd spent his life afterwards trying to use his influence and wealth to re-engineer a vibrant social life for himself as a mid-teenager, well into his, 50s, and I don't remember how old he was when he died. At any rate, some additional commentary on that, I guess, offered up by a correspondent and listener to the show, Leah, in Iowa, and we'll just say that's how it's signed, so we're just going to stick with that. Although there's more information in the meta informations, but we need a subpoena signed by a judge if you want to get that information. But Leah says that this part of the story caught her attention, that and pointing out the bassoon as an instrument is insanely expensive, which I can imagine. It's large, for one thing, and it's, they're not mass producing a lot of bassoons, I don't think, although as it turns out maybe they are elsewhere. It's in the letter. The bassoon is insanely expensive. You can't rent one in most places. So if the kid comes back and says, I want to join orchestra, fine. What do you want to play? Bassoon. Anything but bassoon. And there are certain instruments that are tougher than others, but bassoon, I'm sure. There's not a lot of them. It's not small. It's not a tuba, but you can't rent one in most places. And it costs $5,000 to $10,000. Did you know that? How about that? So something odd, unusual going on initially, right out of the gate. But I don't think that Epstein, as a teenager, came from a background of wealth and privilege. So what else might be going on there? There's more speculation. Hang on. But in a normal situation, if a school buys one because kids want to play it and they have it in the budget or whatever, kids can share it by bringing their own reeds, the mouthpiece. So they can share the instrument, but they got to bring their own reeds. But even the reeds are expensive. And of course, they can't take the bassoon home to practice. Reeds are made of bamboo that has to be soaked in water, and then it often splits or chips, and they cost $25 a piece. So similar to, say, ironically enough, no clear reason why this would be brought into things, but hockey. If you're similar to, say, hockey in warm parts of the U.S., it's a thing where your competition is narrowed to just a few wealthy kids who were interested or whose parents were interested. In other words, there's not a lot of bassoon players. So you don't really have to be a fantastic bassoon player to garner some attention in the orchestra world if you want to have a bassoon in your ensemble. And then some information, some personally identifying information here. My child, who plays trumpet, was expendable in band class. My cellist is expendable in orchestra. But my child, and I don't know whether this is necessarily the case that all these children are in this, or it's just a metaphorical my child, and we'll just leave it that way for security purposes. My child who plays the bassoon is a hot commodity. And we can only do this because my husband bought an alarmingly cheap and dubious plastic one. This is really interesting. On that suspicious Temu website and that arrived working quite well. Our child's teacher says there are only a few bassoon players in the whole state. She says it could lead to a scholarship one day. So that's a thought, an interesting play, if you ask me. It is an interesting choice to make, although I definitely can see kids saying when they're presented with the opportunity to join the orchestra and they say you can, pick any, whatever instrument, what are you interested in? And the answer is, well, something weird and esoteric, because kids are funny that way. One of my kids, one of the smallest in his grade and youngest in his grade, wanted the biggest thing you could possibly get, the biggest instrument he could get his hands on, although he was interested in string instruments. So he's like, I'm going to play the bass. The bass is gigantic, 10 times my size. I can barely carry it, but I'm going to do it. Well, the bassoon, it's odd, it's weird. I had a friend in grade school who said, you know what, oboe. They had the same kind of reeds. Not as big as the bassoon, but a similar instrument. I understand. More after this. Hi, everybody. It's me, David, still your host for the Kagro in the Morning Show after all these years. Thank you for all your continuing support for the show. And if you're listening regularly and still thinking about getting on board as a supporter, well, the time is now. Patreon.com is the easiest way to make recurring subscription-style payments every month, all year round, to keep us going. patreon.com/KagroX brings you to our page where you can sign up with your monthly support. And hey, have you seen our clever new subscription tiers? It's easier than ever to sign up for, say, one crisp dollar bill for every information-packed 2-hour show. If you're the plan ahead type, there's even a year-long subscription program that saves you 15% on the cover price. Or it would if there was a cover price, or even a cover, for that matter. patreon.com/KAGROX. Thanks again for all your support. All right, welcome back now to the last segment of today's Kagro in the Morning Show. So, yes, we were in the middle of actually discussing yesterday's story about the Interlaken camp and Epstein's weird connection and use and manipulation of it to further his psychologically damaged fantasy world. And the fact that he decided to enter into the Interlaken world via bassoon might, in fact, be significant in some way. But yeah, we were saying it's a weird and esoteric kind of a choice to make, but an interesting one, and can really pay off if you're actually interested in it. Like, you're going to be one of the few bassoon players in the area. We had an oboe player. We actually had 2 oboe players in my little elementary school orchestra, and then all the way through into high school. We ended up with 1, as one of our other oboe players went not a different direction with the instrument, different direction in schooling. So anyway, went into the private schooling world, but through our public education, we had one. And he was a good friend of mine, one oboe player. But I think this is the memories you create. I'm going to tell you this story just to inspire those of you who might be in this sector. Music teachers who are like defunding left and right and eliminating music programs all over the place can make a huge impact in people's lives. So where am I? I'm 5,000 years old now. I think it was in 4th grade that we were allowed to choose instruments and join the orchestra program in the elementary school. And that would feed us into what was then junior high school and then on into high school. And anyway, the music teachers in our program, I guess, were educating us in 3rd and 4th grade to classical music. And through that, I think my friend the 2 of them got interested in oboe. I think what happened was we were introduced to, all the, the big name classic composers, right? So we got our Bach education, Bach, not just but Bach education in the form of an introduction to Bach's Little Fugue in G minor. And it really stuck with us. And I remember to this day, one of my favorite classical pieces. And I don't have a lot, but that's one of them. And I think it struck us all as very weird and odd sounding. It begins with I think a lone oboe playing the melody, and of course it expands from there. I was so intrigued by the thing that my parents actually bought me as a gift a recording of the Bach Little Fugue in G minor played on harmonicas, entirely on harmonicas, including enormous, that I didn't even realize they made, bass harmonicas. By the way, if you really want to be intrigued by those kinds of instruments, bass instruments on YouTube, anywhere, bass everything, things you never had any idea that they produce, not just bass violins and bass guitars. But anyway, it was very intriguing, and I think, therefore, when it came time to choose the instruments, 2 people in my tiny little, it wasn't that tiny, but a normal size elementary school class said, oboe. That's the one that's at the beginning of the Bach fugue. I want to play that crazy thing. So I don't think we're probably the only orchestra in the state with 2 4th grade oboe players at the time. And anyway, nobody chose bassoon. They didn't tell us about the bassoon. Bassoon, I'm sure, makes an appearance in the Little Fugue, but our patience had worn thin by that point. And I guess maybe the teacher pointed out, this is an oboe. Anyway, so there you go. That's the impact that they have. Anyway, he played his oboe all the way through high school. I don't know whether there was any scholarship involved in it, but you could see where these niche instruments open up a different world. Now, unfortunately, for Epstein, it opened up this was not intended. As opposed to my other friend went on to a very successful academic career and post-academic career, and I don't know whether he still plays the oboe, but a delightful life path opened up by introduction to music. Not so for Jeffrey Epstein. So, back to Leah's letter. It can lead you even to a scholarship, but it also means something slightly different. Now, she says, I used to dream of going to Interlochen as a kid in Michigan. It was incredibly expensive and also very competitive, but because of that, that's where Jeffrey Epstein sees his way in as an adult. It is incredibly expensive, but it's a great experience, and no one would look funny at me. No one would look askance at me for saying I've become enormously successful. My success story in life was that I loved the bassoon and then something, and I got rich. And anyway, there's lots of kids who want to go, but it's too expensive. I can do scholarships, but you have to introduce me to the kids and maybe even leave me alone with them. For me to encourage them about the arts or whatever. Anyhow, it was incredibly expensive, also very competitive. Elite, basically, is Leah's encapsulation of it. You could get in if you were rich, but in most cases you also had to be talented. So I am guessing that the bassoon was a good point of entry for anyone unsure of rising to the top just talent-wise. It makes me wonder about Epstein's parents. I hope they weren't positioned to groom their kids as spies/agents like it always seems Maxwell's father could have done. At any rate, this all a possibility. And then it goes on from there to ask some questions, wondering whether we have covered Wexner's deposition yet. We really haven't. But that seems to be a fascinating avenue of discussion as well. We have too many other more centrally political stories to cover to get into that, but perhaps one day. But at any rate, yes, it was an interesting idea interesting addition to the picture if we're trying to unravel the mind of Jeffrey Epstein at any point. That it may have been an early realization, or it may just have been a fascination with it. Give me the wackiest, weirdest instrument you got. I want to be an individualist, or it could be, a calculated thing. I'm not going to be able to get there with anything else, but I could find my way into Interlochen. Although his parents were not wealthy, I wonder what kind of scholarship help he got. And anyway, I don't want to speculate too much further on that, but I thought that was an interesting addition to the story. Thank you, Leah, and thank you, by the way, for also adding a couple of paragraphs about how much you're enjoying the show. And we're glad to have you. And as a matter of fact, I will just use this as a jumping off point to mention that there have been a couple other additions to the donation family. Actually, 2 people who have been supporters for some time, opting to boost their contributions. Both Elsie, who very recently, just on the 23rd, join the elite club of people who are already supporting the show and decided to support it with even more financial backing, which we always appreciate. And Peter Catchbell. Pete has been a long-time listener and supporter, and I'll mention not only did he boost his contribution, but he signed up for one of the time-saving and money-saving, I guess, annual subscriptions. And then once Libsyn or Patreon made them available, we thought we'd make use of those tools, and I keep meaning to go back and make sure that we have some of the same tools available for people who want to contribute at different levels other than the ones prescribed so far. Okay, but thank you very much. As I hope to say often enough for everybody who's supporting the show, you're making it possible. And these days of instability and uncertainty in the job market, et cetera, more important than ever. I've got big plans in mind and no actions being taken on how we might be able to expand our audience and make this something sustainable into the future, as AI eliminates everything else there is in the world to do for money. So, thank you very much for standing by us in our production of this show. Now, time to head back to some of the other stories I had on tap for you. I mentioned to you the other day, and I feel like we were very well prepared. So thanks again to my brother Mark for sending on the corporate email yesterday morning. Was it yesterday morning or was it Monday morning? The email went out Monday morning. I don't remember when we discussed it, but which detailed for us, hey, President Trump appears to have screwed up the paperwork. And so far as we can tell, despite the fact that he has been bragging on Truth Social that the across-the-board tariffs that he was going to impose to replace the ones struck down by the Supreme Court were going to go up to 15%, a 50% increase in the taxation rate for tariffs, by the way, overnight. He didn't do any of the paperwork. He did do the paperwork to impose the 10% tariffs. Could have easily asked for the same paperwork to have been reproduced with a 15% rate and sign it and lock it in place, but didn't. And once again, so we end up with another Trump and paperwork, I'm telling you, Trump and paperwork, man, story. And we read it, explained it, and Tuesday night, lots of major newspapers and other media outlets catching up with the fact that, hey, it turns out that the tariffs are really only going to be 10%, not 15%, because reasons. And there was a little bit, some of them just went with speculation. Well, it's another taco situation. He was talked out of going to 15%. And that may ultimately also be true. But I think the story actually is he simply did not do the work. Now, it may be that he decided not to do the work because he'd been talked out of a 15% tariff. I'm not sure. But I thought we were well prepared and alerted early to that one. And by the time the rest of the news media was saying, yeah, it's going to be 10%, not 15%, KITM listeners were saying, yeah, duh, I know, because he didn't do the paperwork. Well, there's another paperwork story that I can share with you. I'm going to grab this one from 51st? The 51st is the publication. 51st.news is where you'll find them online. The 51st, information with representation. It's about D.C., political news about D.C. The 51st, if not state, other entity, that thing that gets left out of everybody, and that thing, that political entity that is governed by Congress, despite the fact that they once gave a nod to home rule. And guess what? The paperwork dispute is as between those two bodies. Congress didn't actually repeal D.C. tax bill, says Attorney General. What? Let's let Martin Ostermuhl tell us the story of this for the 51st. A legal opinion has pushed D.C. into an unprecedented standoff with lawmakers on Capitol Hill. How do you like that? Well, you'll like it better once we understand it more. The language may be dense and legalistic. Oh boy, can't wait. But the message is clear enough. Oh, no, you didn't. That's the message. On Tuesday, D.C. Attorney General Brian Schwab said that Congress had failed in its attempt this month to repeal a tax bill passed by the D.C. Council, raising the stakes in a fight between local and federal lawmakers over both tax policy and the technicalities of congressional oversight of the city. You get the sense of what's going on here, but I need specifics. Schwab's legal opinion had been requested by D.C. Chief Financial Officer Glenn Lee in the wake of House and Senate votes this month to disapprove of a bill that decoupled the city's tax code from certain provisions of the federal tax code, and thus parts of the president's signature tax cuts. The disapproval resolution, which was signed into law by President Trump last week, threatens to throw the current tax filing season into chaos and would cost D.C. more than $650 million in lost revenue over the next 4 years. I still need more, but I see what's taking shape here. The limitations of home rule, one of the limitations of home rule for D.C. is that if the D.C. Council takes some action of which Congress disapproves, and when the rules were written, it was like, well, if you've offended Congress to the extent that they actually feel like the need to step in, that's pretty bad. But of course, when they adopted home rule, Congress had, the House certainly had been in Democratic hands for like 40 plus years, and there was no inkling of there being an ongoing Republican House of Representatives, or B, that they would use their partisanship to micromanage the city. It just didn't really seem like something that they were likely to want to spend their time doing. But then we didn't really know the Newt Gingrich Republicans quite yet. Now, of course, it seems natural for their kind of interference. Anyway, so they're using it. But I guess they didn't do it right. In a 12-page legal opinion, a pop-up that says you gotta subscribe to see the rest of it, even though they didn't prepare me for that. I'm going to have to jump back. It's not that I wouldn't like to subscribe to the 51st, but I haven't at the moment. And we're not going to go through that process on the air. But let's skip down to the Instapaper version and see if we can't figure this out. In a 12-page legal opinion, Schwab said that Congress didn't actually succeed in repealing the bill, both because of how Republicans wrote their disapproval resolution and how long it took them to get it through both the House and the Senate. I guess they were time limited in that. Congress could still repeal the bill, so we don't want to trigger anything here. But in our view, Congress did not do so here. The principal reason, said Schwab, is that the council's tax bill, and I'm not familiar with the bill itself, but the council's tax bill retroactively changed D.C.'s laws so they would apply for the 2025 tax year. The Republican disapproval resolution, though, does not apply retroactively. An individual who committed a crime while a temporary statute was in effect, for instance, can still be punished for that crime after the statute expires, and an individual who accrues civil liability under a subsequently repealed statute can still be subject to an enforcement action for violating that statute after the law is repealed, explained Schwab, just so you know where they're going with this. It still doesn't tell me much about the bill, but it tells me the nature of its effectiveness even if it is eventually repealed. He also addressed what had become a more public point of contention, whether Congress acted within the 30 days that it has to repeal bills passed by council. Okay, that's pretty straightforward and understandable. Schwab agreed with some local lawmakers and activists who have argued that the Senate waited too long to act by a day, 1 day. As such, he wrote, the vote, quote, must be interpreted as an expression of Congress's unfavorable view of the bill, but not as a repeal. Schwab's opinion pushes D.C. into rare territory, seemingly defying Congress and challenging the technicalities of how it can control the city's local affairs, a move that could spark legal and political retaliation from Republicans who have already aggressively interfered in the city's business. Schwab has challenged the Trump administration before, it notes parenthetically, suing over the deployment of the National Guard and the push to take control of the Metropolitan Police Department. While D.C.'s elected officials are often quick to decry congressional interference, in this case, they have mostly remained publicly quiet and privately divided over how to proceed. That's been especially evident within the council itself, where lawmakers have debated behind closed doors whether or not to challenge the Republicans' disapproval resolution. There have even been discussions about defusing the conflict altogether by passing a bill to recouple the city's tax code with Trump's tax cuts, according to Council Chairman Phil Mendelson. And I think they probably find themselves in a similar situation to some of the private companies and even foreign countries who technically find themselves released from, let's say, some of the tariff regime, but who might still nonetheless say, maybe since we've already baked into our economic projections payments of these sorts, whether they be tariffs or lower export numbers because of the tariffs, which aren't being charged to us, but other people are paying, or companies that are law firms that say, let's offer pro bono work to the administration, and they find out, let's say can't be binding legally, and you're freed from that. Shouldn't we do it anyway just to avoid angering the administration and becoming a target for retaliation? I guess you have to at least give that some consideration, even at the D.C. Council. The article continues with a quote, "What we're working through is the political aspects, and the political aspects are that the Republicans have shown themselves to be very vindictive. And the district, unfortunately, is in a vulnerable position," Mendelson said to the 51st on Tuesday afternoon. And at the same time, I think it's safe to say that virtually every member of the council does not want appeasement and wants to stand up for our rights. When asked for a response to Schwab's opinion, a spokesperson for Mayor Muriel Bowser punted to the CFO's office. A spokesman says the office is now reviewing it, and in the meantime, tax season continues as usual under the provisions the council approved in its decoupling bill. Residents and businesses can continue to file their returns. If Congress has its way, Lee says tax filing season would have to be delayed and deadlines could extend into the late summer months and beyond. It could also cost D.C. $5 to $10 million to redo its tax forms, the systems, and guidance to preparers, and lead to a possible cash flow shortage for the city. Typically, during the April filing season, we receive roughly $400 to $450 million in final tax payments. If we need to suspend the current process, we would not receive that $450 million until September, he told lawmakers. As of this week, Lee said 75,000 D.C. residents had filed their tax returns, roughly 20% of the total. During a council hearing on Tuesday afternoon, activists pushed for Lee to stay the course, no matter what Republicans on Capitol Hill might threaten. To do otherwise would put the district into unnecessary financial peril and threaten further loss of our limited autonomy, said Michelle Chappell, or perhaps Chappelle, I'm not certain how she pronounces it, Chappell, co-chair of the Congress Working Group for Free D.C. If we capitulate to an invalid disapproval resolution, we stand to lose much more than one orderly tax season. We would effectively be ceding control of our local tax system to an incompetent federal government. Well, that seems true. And it's the end of the piece for now. But a good point and another good illustration of how sometimes, even when the Trump administration does everything wrong, but believes they've done everything right, and then everybody opts to behave as if they've done the thing right, just in order to either make things simpler or stay out of the way and keep their heads down and not be a target. And then they walk away with the impression that that's the truth and that's the way it works. Is there a 30-day limit on resolutions of disapproval? Republicans will walk away and say, no, there isn't. I mean, it says so in the legislation, but in reality, there isn't, because no one wants to get in our way, or maybe they just learned to forget about the 30-day limitation altogether. I don't know. Last time we did it on the 31st day and nobody had a problem. Yeah, they were just being nice. They weren't actually saying there's no such thing as the time limitation. You just got used to them jumping out of your way. It's an interesting prospect. I'll say that. Okay. So let's see. Other bits and pieces of news that we should double back on and follow up on. And there's probably more developed writing on this since spotting Chris Geidner's comment on Blue Sky about this. But another Minnesota alert and another contempt of court alert. This from the 23rd on Monday, so there's probably some write-ups on this by now. Judge Eric Tostrud, Tostrud, a Trump appointee, by the way, issued civil contempt sanctions against the DOJ on Monday for moving a man out of Minnesota against an order, not releasing him under the timeline ordered, and not returning him to Minnesota. A very frequent problem and a recurring one. So in one specific instance where they were ordered, no, you can't move this person out of Minnesota. Well, we did it anyway. Well, you're ordered to release him by this time and return him to Minnesota. Nope and nope. Somebody's going to get in trouble. And they did. Here is a screenshot of Judge Tostrud's order for the United States District Court for the District of Minnesota. Therefore, based on the foregoing, which we'll skip, and on all the files, records, and proceedings herein, it is ordered that effective March 1st, 2026, there's a chance to cure this, Petitioner Fernando T's motion for an order to show cause and request for compensatory sanctions is granted as follows. 1. Respondents are found in civil contempt of the court of this court's January 20th, 26 order. Compensatory civil contempt sanctions are awarded in favor of petitioner, not to the court, but to the petitioner, in the amount of $568.29, representing petitioner's documented travel expenses incurred as a direct result of respondent's violation of that order, and respondents shall pay the sum of $568.29 to petitioner or to petitioner's counsel if payment was advanced by counsel on or before April 1st, 2026. So we'll see what comes of this. There's some more comments here, more posts in a thread from Chris. Again, this was all done on Monday. Tostrud finds that all government officials named jointly and severally liable, but notes that he did so because the court still doesn't know who is to blame for the contemptuous actions. I think we usually say contumacious actions, but I don't know. Contemptuous makes the point, too. Tostrud said he'll amend the order if DOJ files a motion identifying the responsible respondent, and then a copy of the order and all the documents that go along with it. I wonder if we search for Judge Tostrud's name in the news, whether we'll get a broader narrative of what's going on. Search the news section here. 14 hours ago, a post from The Hill, which we're okay with. Sarah Davis writes up, Trump-appointed judge finds DHS in contempt over detainee transfer. And this has to do with the same case here, the Fernando T. case. Their write-up of it says Tostrud noted that Fernando, a Mexican citizen, was released from the Texas detainment facility that they were holding him in late January without his belongings, and said federal officials have not explained why they withheld Fernando's belongings when they released him. That, too, a common violation. They seem to just steal whatever these detainees have got, either because they can keep it, sell it, whatever, or just to cause problems for the detainees. Anyway, this detainee filed a habeas corpus petition on January 19th seeking a release from custody or a bond hearing. Fernando then filed for a temporary restraining order the next day to prevent his transfer while his petition was being heard, which Tostrud responded to in an order forbidding the federal government from moving him. The federal government said they had transferred him to El Paso, Texas anyway on January 22nd. According to the Monday ruling, Tostrud proceeded to order DHS to ensure Fernando's return to Minnesota by January 24th, but the federal government said the earliest they could do it was January 27th for some reason, citing potential travel delays because of the winter storm. In a letter to the court that was included in the Monday ruling, the federal government acknowledged that Fernando's release in Texas was not in compliance with Tostrud's order. DHS's lawyer expressed that he was deeply remorseful about the situation and apologized for the violation. The judge noted that the government's letter includes no legal argument, authority, or other response to Fernando's request for compensatory action. Additionally, the federal judge rejected DHS's explanation about Fernando's canceled flight due to the winter snowstorm, writing, "These asserted justifications do not support an inability to comply with the January 22nd or the January 20th order. Respondents acknowledge that they violated the order. Accordingly, I find that respondents' conduct constitutes civil contempt. And respondents, as defined herein, are jointly and severally liable for compensatory civil contempt sanctions for airfare costs Fernando incurred because of the violation." The judge also dismissed Fernando's request for an evidentiary hearing, calling the procedure unnecessary. Barring the federal government's request for a hearing, Tostrud said his order will go into effect on the first day of March. He was transferred shortly after the judge's ruling, a DHS spokesperson told The Hill in a statement. ICE officers had not yet been informed of the ruling and proceeded with the scheduled flight to a detention center. "We work as quickly as possible to process illegal aliens after their arrests," which of course is part of the plan to get them out of the jurisdiction of these judges. It didn't work here. So I guess this is the first time that a judge has gone ahead and said, okay, yes, you are in contempt now. But have they collected the $568 from anyone in particular? No, they haven't. Not yet. I guess we can wait and see whether that comes to pass. Anyway, we will now go away and come back tomorrow. There's much more to cover for this week. And as you know, we probably won't get to everything, but we have a treat for you, which we have every day. So it's not really that much of a treat, but I'm sure you're looking forward to it. The West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. It's a treat all in itself. Justice Putnam brings you his roundup of the stories from around the country and around the world today. What's up top? Even more of Trump's dark past surfaces at the worst possible time for the decaying monarch. And I think that's what Greg was talking about, those missing pages. What else? In a 5-4 decision, the Supreme Court has ruled that Americans can't sue the U.S. Postal Service even when employees deliberately refuse to deliver their mail.
You have been listening to Kagro in the Morning with David Waldman.
Elsewhere in the courts, a judge has barred the government from a wholesale search of Washington Post reporter Hannah Nathanson's seized devices. Very interesting stuff there. Plus, Whiskey Pete Hegseth is appealing a judge's order that blocks him from punishing a former Navy pilot. Let's find out more about... it's Mark Kelly. I didn't finish the sentence. Now you know. See you tomorrow.